I never imagined my own sister's wedding would be the event that pushed me out of the family completely. Growing up, I was always the dependable one, the daughter who remembered anniversaries, the sister who planned surprises, the girl who put everyone's comfort before her own. I wasn't perfect, but I tried. God knows I tried, which is why the message I received that morning felt like a blade quietly slipping between my ribs. It was 6:42 a.m. I still remember the exact time because I had woken up early to finalize the floral arrangements for my sister Leela's wedding. I was sitting at my kitchen counter half awake, sipping coffee and scrolling through emails when I saw her name. The message was short, painfully, cruelly short. You shouldn't come to the wedding. It's better this way. I stared at it for a long moment, blinking hard, certain I was reading it wrong. I clicked on it again, same words, same coldness. Before I could type anything back, another message appeared. It was a family decision. Please don't make this a drama. My coffee mug slipped slightly in my hand, and a wave of heat flushed across my face. Anger, confusion, embarrassment. I wasn't sure which emotion came first. A family decision. My own family decided I shouldn't come. I typed back quickly, fingers trembling. What are you talking about? What happened? Why would I not come to your wedding? She left me on typing for nearly a full minute before responding. Mom said it might be awkward. Dad agreed. And Matthew doesn't want unnecessary tension. It's just easier if you sit this one out. Matthew, her fiancé, a man I barely knew. A man whose opinion apparently outweighed mine, her sister's, and my parents' eyes. I felt a strange numbness spread through my chest, as if all the air had been quietly siphoned out of the room. I didn't know whether to cry or laugh at the absurdity. Instead, I typed slowly. I spent months helping you plan this wedding. What tension are you talking about? Her answer came faster this time. You know why. But I didn't. Or maybe they had invented some reason that made sense only to them. I called her. She declined. I called Mom. Busy. Dad didn't pick up either. It felt like being shut out of my own life, like watching a door slam and lock from the inside while I stood outside barefoot in the cold. 3 hours later, Mom finally called. I picked up immediately. Mom, what is going on? Her voice was stiff, too rehearsed. Honey, it's not a big deal. We just think it's best if you don't come. You know how sensitive Leela is. You two always end up arguing. That's not true, not always. I whispered, throat tight. It's done, she said sharply. Don't make things complicated. And that was it. That was the entirety of my dismissal. They didn't want me there, not because of something I did, but because excluding me was simply convenient. I spent the next 2 days crying in the shower, sleeping too much, eating too little. I kept imagining the wedding, the smiles, the photographs, the speeches, the places I would have stood, the moments I would have shared, now rewritten without me. But on the fourth morning, something in me snapped. Maybe it was exhaustion, maybe it was heartbreak, maybe it was finally realizing how little they valued me. Whatever it was, I opened my laptop and booked a vacation. Not a small trip, a full, unapologetic escape. 7 days in a quiet beach town. No why. No phone service, no family, just me. I didn't leave a note. I didn't tell anyone. I packed my suitcase, locked my apartment, turned off my phone, and left. And God, I breathed for the first time in years. The ocean air was warm when I arrived, the sky a soft apricot color as the sun dipped down. The small rental cottage smelled like cedar and sea salt, and when I lay down on the bed that night, the silence felt like a blessing. For the first time, I didn't check my phone, didn't refresh a message thread, didn't think about whether someone needed something from me. The wedding was 2 days away, but I didn't think about it. Really, I didn't. But my family, they suddenly desperately tried to think about me. They just couldn't reach me, because while they were preparing for the big day, smiling for rehearsals, hosting guests, something was happening behind the scenes. Something ugly, something disastrous, something that would crack their perfect little celebration in half. And by the time they realized the wedding was falling apart, collapsing in a way that would haunt them for years, they were all frantically trying to reach me. Calling, texting, messaging, begging, but I didn't see a single message because I was sitting under a palm tree, toes buried in warm sand, eyes closed, listening to the waves, completely unaware that everything they had chosen over me was burning to the ground. And I wasn't there to save them. I woke up to the sound of birds outside my window and sunlight pouring through white linen curtains. It had been years since I'd woken up without an alarm demanding my attention or my phone buzzing with someone else's needs. For a few moments, I just lay there, listening to the waves crash gently against the shore. My body felt unusually light, like the weight I'd been dragging for years had slipped off somewhere along the highway to this tiny beach town. I couldn't have known how drastically things were unraveling back home. I stretched, got up, made myself coffee, and stepped out onto the little wooden deck outside the cottage. The ocean was a sheet of glittering silver under the morning sun. A few early walkers dotted the beach, but otherwise the world was quiet, blissfully quiet. I didn't turn on my phone. I didn't want to. I wanted this peace to last as long as possible. Around mid-afternoon, I went into town. The streets were lined with pastel-colored shops and local cafes. The air smelled like cinnamon buns and sea breeze. I ate lunch at a small cafe where the waitress called everyone sweetheart, whether they were 5 years old or 55. When I sat with a book by the window, there was a strange sense of freedom settling inside me, one I had never allowed myself to feel. And somewhere far away at the exact same time, my family was losing their minds. But that truth hadn't reached me yet. It was only later that I learned what happened at the rehearsal dinner, the very event I had spent months planning, color coding, agonizing over until my eyes hurt. Apparently, my absence was the first domino to fall. Leela looked beautiful and miserable. The stress had been getting to her for days, or maybe guilt. Maybe somewhere inside, beneath all the entitlement and selfishness, she knew excluding me was cruel. Whatever the reason, something was off with her that night. She snapped at the makeup artist, insulted a cousin for wearing the wrong shade of blue, and then publicly scolded one of Matthew's nieces for accidentally stepping on her dress. People whispered, guests exchanged uncomfortable glances. Matthew tried to calm her, but she shoved his hand away hard enough for people to notice. My mother excused her behavior as pre-wedding nerves. My father laughed it off. But the guests didn't, and then came the real catastrophe, the part no one saw coming, the part that would destroy everything. While the celebratory dinner was going on, 2 of the groomsmen caught Matthew outside the venue yelling on the phone. Not arguing, screaming, the kind of screaming that comes from someone whose world is collapsing in real time. They'd heard only pieces through the glass door. What do you mean? No, no, tell me you're joking. Don't you dare walk out now. Just stay where you are. At first, they thought he was talking to a vendor or planner. Weddings come with disasters. Sometimes the bakery burns the cake or the DJ gets sick. But no, this wasn't about a cake or flowers or a missed delivery. This was about the truth, a truth that hit him like a car. Someone had sent him screenshots of messages, very personal messages, messages between Leela and someone who was not Matthew. Messages she had been sending for weeks, maybe months, while planning her perfect dream wedding with a man she told the world she adored. At first, Matthew didn't believe it. He thought the messages were edited fake. He was shaking, muttering, "This can't be real. She wouldn't do this." But the problem was, the messages contained details only Leela could have written, photos only she could have taken, voice notes only she could have sent. Someone had gathered enough proof to sink the Titanic, and they sent every bit of it directly to the groom one night before the wedding. He confronted Leela inside the rehearsal hall in front of everyone. My parents, relatives, friends, cousins, bridesmaids, his entire family. The entire room went silent as he held up his phone, his voice cracking, asking her to explain why she had been messaging another man, why she had been discussing plans and meeting before the wedding. I wasn't there to see it, but they told me later. Leela didn't deny it. She froze, pale, shaking, caught. People gasped. My mother nearly fainted. My father tried to intervene. The bridesmaids backed away, as if betrayal were contagious. And Matthew, he broke right there in front of everyone, shouting, crying, asking her if he wasn't enough, if she was ever planning to tell him, if she even loved him. Leela kept saying, "I can explain. Please just let me." But Matthew wasn't listening anymore. He stormed out, his family followed, Half the guests walked out behind them. The wedding was done, finished, destroyed, but things didn't end there. Because after collapsing into chaos, after screaming and crying and begging Matthew not to leave, after hours of embarrassment, panic, and humiliation, my parents finally thought of one thing: me, the daughter they had excluded. The daughter they didn't want at the wedding. The daughter they dismissed like she was a stain on the guest list. Suddenly, I was the one they needed. Mom called first, Dad next, then Leela, then Mom again. Then Dad again, then the cousins, then the aunts. They tried everything. Where are you? Please answer. It's an emergency. Call us back now. We need you, honey, please. Your sister needs you. Come home, please. But my phone. It was powered off, tucked in a drawer, covered by a sweater. I didn't hear a single ring. I didn't see a single text. I didn't know my entire family was falling apart, that they were screaming into a digital void trying to find me. I was sitting on a beach chair with my feet in the sand, watching the sun set behind calm waves, blissfully unaware that my absence had become the biggest catastrophe of their lives. I woke up on the third morning of my vacation feeling lighter than I had felt in years. The air smelled different here, cleaner, warmer, softer, like the universe had washed everything and hung the sky out to dry overnight. The linen curtains fluttered, letting sunlight dance across my bed in shifting golden stripes that felt like warm fingers brushing my skin. For a long moment, I simply lay there, staring at the ceiling fan turning lazily above me, listening to the distant hum of waves. My mind was empty. No buzzing chaos, no constant alertness, no need to brace myself for disappointment. Just stillness, a kind of emotional silence I had forgotten could exist. I wasn't thinking about my family. I wasn't thinking about the wedding. I wasn't thinking about the message that had kicked me out of my own sister's big day. That pain had lived in my chest for days, throbbing like a bruise that refused to fade. But today it felt muted, dimmed, almost distant. I rolled out of bed, my feet touching the cool wooden floor. The cottage was small, just 3 rooms, but it felt like a world I could breathe in. A world where I wasn't the family's emotional punching bag or problem solver. A world where no one demanded explanations or sacrifices. For the first time in a long time, the day belonged entirely to me. I made breakfast slowly, savoring each step like a ritual, cracking eggs into a bowl, whisking until they turned a soft, sunny yellow, letting butter melt across the pan until it hissed. The toaster clicked and the smell of warm bread filled the air. I squeezed fresh orange juice, feeling absurdly proud of myself for remembering how to enjoy something so simple. I carried my plate out onto the deck, the ocean stretching endlessly in front of me. The sunlight shimmered over it in sheets of silver. The wood beneath my feet was warm from the morning heat. With every bite, I felt myself grounding into this new, fragile peace. Meanwhile, miles away, my family was experiencing the opposite of peace. But I didn't know that yet. After breakfast, I wore a loose cotton dress and walked to the beach barefoot. The sand was already warm, fine as powder. The tide washed over my ankles, cool and invigorating. Children were laughing, building castles. Dogs chased each other. Couples strolled hand in hand. I felt invisible in the best possible way, an observer instead of the family's emergency firefighter. I didn't miss the chaos, I didn't miss the noise, and I definitely didn't miss the guilt they always used to drag me back in. What I didn't know was that back home, chaos was erupting like a volcano. The rehearsal dinner, which I had helped organize with color, coded spreadsheets and late-night phone calls, had transformed into a public catastrophe. My absence, ironically, was the spark that lit the fuse. Those who knew me asked, "Where's she?" Why would she miss her sister's big event? Those who didn't know me whispered theories. Did they fight? Is she upset? Did she catch some drama? My mother brushed off questions with a tight smile stretched too thin over rising panic. My dad pretended everything was fine, but his face twitched every time someone mentioned my name. My sister Leela drank too much champagne and snapped at almost everyone. Guilt was clawing at her. She just didn't know how loudly it was going to roar by the end of the night. But I didn't know any of that. I spent my afternoon exploring little shops with hand-painted signs and uneven wooden floors. I bought a shell bracelet from an old woman whose eyes sparkled like she knew stories no one else did. She told me that the bracelet chooses its owner, and laughed when I raised an eyebrow. Maybe it was silly, but I wore it anyway. At that exact moment, miles away, my sister was falling apart in ways she never expected. Leela's secret was out. Someone, no one knows who yet, had sent Matthew the screenshots, every message, every photo, every voice note, every plan she'd made with someone who wasn't him. He confronted her in front of the entire room. She cried, she stuttered, she begged, she lied, she denied, then admitted, then lied again, then broke completely. The groom stormed out, half the guests followed. Matthew's mother slapped my father. My mother screamed at Matthew's sister. 2 cousins recorded everything on their phones. Leela collapsed in a chair, shaking violently. And in the center of all this destruction, someone shouted, "Where is she? The older sister. Isn't she the one who keeps this family from exploding?" And the room fell silent. For the first time that night, everyone realized I was gone, truly gone, unreachable. My mother began trembling. My father wiped sweat from his forehead, pacing frantically. Leela kept whispering, call her, please. Just call her." They did, repeatedly. Meanwhile, I was sitting at a cafe by the beach, eating a slice of fresh key lime pie. I didn't know that my phone, locked inside a drawer under a folded sweater, was buzzing every few seconds, vibrating with message after message, like a digital scream failing to reach its target. At one point, I looked at a couple sitting 2 tables away from me, arguing softly, the woman wiping tears, the man trying to hold her hand. And I wondered what it would be like to have someone who chose me wholeheartedly, who didn't throw me aside when things were inconvenient. Something my family never learned how to do. Later in the day, I sat close to the water, letting waves wash over my calves. The horizon stretched endlessly ahead. I leaned back on my hands, letting the sun warm my face, listening to the soft crash of waves. I didn't realize those waves were drowning out the sound of disaster unraveling back home. By evening, the sun began its slow descent, turning the sky molten gold and pink. A group of tourists built a bonfire, passing marshmallows around. They invited me to join, but I simply watched from a distance, loving the warmth even from far away. Behind me, the cottage waited quietly. Inside, my phone's battery was draining under the weight of unanswered panic. By the time night spread its dark velvet across the sky, my phone had 142 missed calls, 56 voicemails, 178 unread messages, 11 emergency alerts, 2 please we need you, video messages, and dozens of frantic texts from every direction. I remained blissfully unaware. The fire crackled, the ocean whispered, someone strummed a guitar. A little boy danced barefoot in the sand. The air smelled like smoke and salt. For the first time in my life, I didn't feel like I was on call for a disaster. But disaster was on its way to me, because sometime around midnight, when every attempt to reach me failed, when every relative had tried contacting me, when panic turned into fear, my family made a decision. A dramatic, desperate, wild decision. They packed their bags, they got into the car, and they began driving toward the last known location they had for me. They were coming, and they were bringing the entire storm with them. I woke before sunrise on the 4th morning, the room still wrapped in shadows. For a moment I didn't know where I was. The fan hummed softly above me, and a faint bluish light seeped through the curtains. Then the smell of the sea drifted in, a scent that felt like peace itself, and everything clicked back into place. I was far from home, far from noise, far from people who only remembered me when they needed rescuing. And that morning, like the one before, my phone still lay inside the drawer, dead silent, dead battery, dead connection to everything unraveling behind me. I stretched slowly, feeling each muscle unwind, and wrapped myself in a cotton shawl before stepping onto the small wooden deck. The world was washed in shades of pale lavender and silver, the ocean calm and endless. The horizon glowed faintly, promising another beautiful day. I had no idea this peaceful morning would be the last. The last quiet breath before the storm finally reached me. I made tea and sat on the deck step, hugging the warm mug between my palms. A fisherman in the distance was setting up nets, and seagulls were circling lazily above him. A light wind brushed my face, carrying the scent of salt. I didn't feel lonely. I felt steady, whole, untethered. I thought of Lila not painfully, but distantly, like remembering someone who had once mattered but no longer held the power to hurt me. I wondered if her wedding preparations were going smoothly, whether the flowers had been delivered, whether she liked the decorations I had chosen before she decided she didn't want me there anymore. But then I pushed the thought away. I didn't want to sour this morning with memories of rejection. I got dressed, tying my hair loosely, and walked toward the beach. The sand was cool beneath my feet, the sky slowly blooming into brighter pinks and oranges. The day felt full of possibilities, none of which involved my family, or so I thought. After walking a long stretch of beach, I bought breakfast from a small bakery. They sold warm butterquasses and small fruit tarts that tasted like sunshine. I sat outside, letting flakes fall from my fingers, not minding the crumbs on my dress. That's when I noticed the first sign that something was off, a strange, persistent feeling, a prickle on my skin, like someone somewhere was talking about me. Or worrying about me, or missing me, but I brushed it away. It was probably nothing. Just a leftover ache my heart had carried too long. I spent the next few hours exploring a local lighthouse, climbing its spiraling steps until I reached the top. When I stepped out onto the observation deck, wind whipped through my hair and the world spread out beneath me. Vast ocean on one side, sleepy beach town on the other. I felt small but powerful, like I had stepped out of the shadows I'd been living in. Down below, life seemed slow, peaceful. Up here, I felt free. But somewhere on the highway, speeding toward me, reality was coming fast, my family's car, my mother crying intermittently, my father driving like the world depended on him. Leela in the back seat, wrapped in a blanket, makeup smeared from crying. They weren't coming just to find me. They were coming because everything had fallen apart, because they believed I was the key to fixing a disaster they themselves had created. Back at the lighthouse, I closed my eyes and let the wind roar around me. I didn't know I had less than a day before everything in my peaceful world collided violently with the catastrophe I had run from. When lunchtime came, I ate at a quiet little restaurant by the harbor. Grilled fish, lemon butter, fresh bread. I took my time, I didn't rush. My body felt relaxed, the tension I had carried for years dissolving day by day. What I didn't know was that at that exact moment, my mother had just learned from a hotel near the beach town that someone matching my description had checked in 2 days earlier. She burst into tears from relief, clutching her phone like a lifeline. Thank God, she's here. She's really here. My father exhaled shakily. Leela covered her face with her hands and sobbed softly. They were just 2 hours from me now, and I had no idea. After lunch, I rented a bicycle and rode along the coast. The breeze tangled my hair as I pedaled toward a long, winding path shaded by palm trees. I stopped occasionally to take pictures. Not of myself, but of the view, the water, the sky, the sunlight dancing on the waves. I didn't want to freeze my face in time. I wanted to freeze my peace. Around sunset, the sky turned into a painting. Streaks of gold, scarlet, and deep blue swirling together like fire and water. I sat on the sand, tucked my knees against my chest, and watched the day fade. Every minute felt like a gift I didn't deserve but was grateful for. Then, as the first stars appeared, a strange heaviness settled in my chest. Not fear, not sadness, but something. Expectant, I brushed it off, telling myself I was being dramatic. After all, nothing was wrong here. Nothing at all. When night finally fell, I returned to the cottage. I lit a small lamp, made chamomile tea, and curled up in bed with a book. The world felt perfect. But less than an hour later, a car pulled up outside the beach town's welcome point. My family's car. A local police officer helped them review CCTV footage, and when the officer confirmed that I had indeed been seen near the docks earlier that day, my mother burst into tears again. We're close, oh God, please let her be safe. Safe, the irony of that word hung heavy in the universe because I was safe. Until they arrived, in my cottage, I eventually drifted into sleep. Deep, restful sleep, the kind I rarely got at home, but while I slept, my family checked into the nearest motel. My mother kept pacing the room. My father kept rubbing his temples. Leela kept crying into a pillow, whispering apologies meant for me, though I couldn't hear them. They made a plan. In the morning, they would divide into 2 groups. They would search cafes, beaches, stores. They would ask locals. They would knock on doors if they had to. They would find me. And they would bring the entire fallout of the wedding, with every ounce of guilt, regret, tension, and damage, straight to my doorstep. The universe felt like it was holding its breath, waiting, watching, counting down, because tomorrow, the morning I thought would be peaceful, the morning I planned to spend reading on the deck or walking barefoot along the shore, my world would collide with theirs, and everything I had run away from, everything I had healed, everything I had escaped, would come crashing back into my life with full force, and I wasn't ready, not even close. I woke to the sound of birds shrieking, the first morning light filtering through the thin curtains of my little cottage. For a second, I didn't remember where I was. Then the ocean breeze brushed my face, bringing with it the faint smell of salt, sand, and freedom. Freedom. I repeated the word silently, letting it sink in, because for the past 4 days, it had been my only constant. I thought I was alone. I thought the world had finally let me breathe, but I was wrong. Before I could even sip my morning coffee, there was a knock at the door. A soft knock at first, then more insistent, almost frantic. My heart jumped, not from fear, but from recognition. That knock carried the energy of the storm I had been running from. I froze, staring at the door, every muscle in my body tense, yet strangely calm. I knew without looking who it must be. I didn't want to see them. I didn't want to face them. I didn't want the collision. And yet, a part of me had known all along this moment would come. Another knock. Louder, desperate, I placed my mug down, my hands shaking slightly. Not from fear, but anticipation. The doorbell rang. My heart pounded like a drum, each beat echoing in my chest. I walked slowly to the door, almost savoring this moment. Their panic, their need, their dependence on the one person they once discarded. I opened it, and there they were. Mom, eyes red and swollen, hair in disarray. Mascara streaked across her cheeks. Dad, face pale, jaw tight, pacing back and forth. Leela, wrapped in a blanket, her voice trembling, hands shaking as she spoke before she could even take a breath. Please, please come home. We need you. I stared at them, letting the silence stretch. They hadn't expected that. They thought their desperation would automatically pull me in, make me bend, make me forgive. But I had changed. I had been gone. I had been free. And I had felt the warmth of independence for the first time. I took a deep breath and said nothing. My mother stepped forward, nearly falling over her own words. Honey, we messed up. It was wrong, we just. Everything fell apart without you, Leela's wedding. It's ruined. Matthew left the guests. Everything. Please, you have to fix this. I tilted my head, studying her, watching her crumble under the weight of guilt that had never touched her before, watching my father's stoic facade finally break, watching Leela's false confidence dissolve into panic. You left me out, I said quietly. My voice was calm, almost chilling in its control. You didn't think I belonged. You told me I shouldn't come. You decided as a family that I was unnecessary. They didn't respond. They couldn't. The words hung between us like a verdict. I continued, and now, after days of chaos, panic, and disaster, you come to me begging. After everything, you want me to rescue the family you deliberately excluded. My mother started to cry again, louder this time. My father put his hand over his face. Leela whispered, I didn't know. I mean, I didn't. I was stressed. I raised a hand enough. You don't get to talk. I stepped aside, letting the morning light illuminate their shame. For a few minutes, no one moved. They realized fully that they had lost the power they once held over me, that I was no longer the daughter who would silently apologize, fix, or forgive on command, that I had gone somewhere they could not reach, and in that distance I had grown stronger, untouchable. Then I spoke again. You want me to fix this wedding. You want me to put the pieces back together. No, you lost that chance. You threw it away the moment you decided I wasn't important. Leela's face fell. She tried to protest, but I silenced her with a look. A long, heavy look. One that said, I see you. I see everything. I understand your fear. and I am done being used as a patch for your mistakes. I've spent 4 days away. I continued, voice firm, deliberate. 4 days breathing, living, enjoying a world where I'm not a servant to your ego. I've eaten breakfast without fear of criticism. I've walked along the beach without being watched. I've slept peacefully without guilt pressing down on me. And in these 4 days, I realized something important. I paused, letting each word sink. I realized that my life is mine. My choices are mine. My worth is mine, and no one, not you, not Leela, not anyone, has the right to demand it back. My mother tried to interrupt, but I lifted a hand. Do not speak. Then I did something I had rehearsed in my mind every night while watching the stars. I reached into my bag, pulling out the envelope I had packed for safety, and handed it to my father. Inside was a copy of a contract that transferred all responsibility for the wedding planning, the logistics, the guests, the vendors, everything back to them, including a timeline I had drafted, detailed instructions for every aspect they had mishandled. I hadn't included myself. I hadn't agreed to supervise, mediate, or intervene. They could read, interpret, and execute it themselves, or fail miserably. Read it carefully, I said. This is your responsibility now, every mistake, every oversight, every fallout. You want me to fix things, that ship has sailed. My mother gasped, my father's jaw dropped, Leela's hands trembled, and then slowly the weight of understanding fell upon them. They realized that I wasn't coming back to fix them, that I had reclaimed control over my own life, that my absence had given them the lesson they had never learned while I was at their disposal. I turned away from them and walked to the door. Enjoy the chaos, I said softly, because it is entirely yours. They called my name, they begged, they pleaded, but I didn't turn around. I walked toward the beach. The sun was warm on my back. The ocean stretched endlessly in front of me. And in that moment, I understood something profound. I had escaped, I had survived, and I had finally fully taken back my power. I didn't look back. I didn't need to. The waves whispered my freedom. The wind carried my resolve, and the storm I had run from for years, which my family had unleashed, could no longer touch me. For the first time, I was untouchable, whole, free, and at peace. The lesson was simple but undeniable. People will recognize your worth only when you refuse to lend it to them. And in that refusal, true power is found. I walked along the shore, my toes sinking into warm sand, letting the tide lap around my feet. Behind me, the chaos of my family, the ruined wedding, the panic, the regret. They were theirs to carry, not mine, never mine again. And for the first time in my life, I smiled without guilt. I laughed without apology. I lived without compromise, because I had finally realized my life was mine, not theirs, not anyone's, mine, and no one could ever take that away. I stayed on that beach for hours, letting the horizon stretch endlessly, imagining all the possibilities ahead. Possibilities not dictated by my family's whims, not constrained by their jealousy, guilt, or mistakes, but entirely gloriously mine. And in that quiet, sun-drenched world, I promised myself something I had never dared to before. I would never let anyone make me feel small again. I would never let anyone decide my worth, and I would never run from my own life for the sake of someone else's drama. I was free, finally free, and for the first time, nothing, not anger, not guilt, not family, could touch me.